Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Ashtoya Shata Shri Śrīmad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedānta Goswami Maharaj Śrīla Prabhupāda Ki Jai Śrīla Prabhupāda Ki Jai His Divine Grace Śrīla Prabhupāda Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Śrīla Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shikho Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shai Mukund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Baladev Subhadra Ki Jai Shri Bhakti Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru Gauranga. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda. Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai.
All glories to Bhagavad-gītā.
Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Srimati Bhakti Vedānta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Acharya Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshatara. Hare Krishna. Sweet, sweet, holy name, Ki Jai. Yeah. Well, our little talk about consciousness kind of sparked a nice discussion on the forum. So maybe we should talk a little bit about that before we go into Vishnu Sahasranam and Nectar of Devotion, all that stuff. This might be a good time to stoke up the fire too. Grab a mic. So it seems like this topic is very much needed. The second chapter of Bhagavad-gītā is clear, you know, it's simple, but the implications of it are very deep. And I think that's what people aren't grasping. That's the sense I get, you know, when we discuss these topics, and there's this sort of awkward silence, you know, like, well, I know I heard what you said, and it seemed very simple and straightforward at the time, but it's like I didn't really quite get it, and you know, people can't really like discuss these things independently. It's like I always have to initiate the discussion. It seems like nobody really talks about these things like on their own, out of their own realization. That's the impression I get. What do you think? Take the mic.
I think you got it bang on the button there.
You think that's right? Well, so what do we need? Do we need to talk about it more, or how? You know, how can we address this? I want to hear from the people online too, what they think about this topic, because maybe we need like a course or something, or at least a section on the main site. Peter?
I think
Take the mic.
just off the top of my head, I think the problem is, just off the top of my head, is that people, it's a misunderstood term. People can't define consciousness.
That's
so
correct.
When it comes bring up, it's traumatic. So they want to run away.
Well, it brings up like an empty space. It's like it's a not understood term.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a definition for consciousness in the West.
Mm-hmm.
The only definition is some half-baked, pseudo-scientific theory that consciousness is a function of the brain. You know, that's like going to the movies and saying that the movie is a function of the projector. No, there's a whole studio, and there's a producer, and there's actors and people, you know, a whole bunch of people behind it. So what they're missing is that when we say consciousness, we say that in the context of the transcendental nature of the living entity.
And that, but you have to have Brahman realization too, right? That's aham
Well,
brahmasmi, right?
that would be the complete definition of the knowledge or the definition of the living entity. Yeah. That would be the complete. But in the beginning, at least, we can have some knowledge about the living entity, and that comes from second chapter of Bhagavad-gītā. I mean, the basic knowledge. And then that knowledge is enhanced by our own experience in devotional service. Just like we were talking at lunch the other day, that no one is feeling difficulty in following the regulative principles, because we're really on the spiritual platform. See? If we weren't on the spiritual platform, if we were on the mental platform or the religious platform or some other platform that's basically material, mental, then we would be having trouble following the regulative principles. It would be a strain. It would be difficult. But the fact that it's easy means that we're all tasting transcendental happiness. And that, of course, is a function of pure consciousness. You can't taste transcendental happiness as long as you're thinking, I'm this body. There's going to be some desire for material sense enjoyment. So what I'm trying to understand, see, from my point of view, it's very difficult to figure out why people can't understand this or why people can't conceive of this just by reading Bhagavad-gītā. This is what went wrong. See, Prabhupada came, he translated Bhagavad-gītā, he presented Bhagavad-gītā very nicely, and 98% of his disciples didn't get it. I mean, to the extent that when Prabhupada was near the end of his life, 2 months, 3 months before he left his body, he was still preaching on second chapter of Bhagavad-gītā, you're not your body. They didn't get it. They didn't get it. By the time I reach that stage, I want to be preaching on very, very exalted topics and having the students understand it nicely. You see? I want to prepare the ground now for an advanced understanding of devotional service in the future. So I want everybody to understand this point of what is consciousness very, very thoroughly, very deeply, so that we can move on. I don't want to be going over this again and again and again. I want everybody to get it. And I want to leave behind some kind of course or some kind of you know, like a series of articles or something that will enable other people to get it. So what I need to know from you is, like, what's missing? What is the confusion? Where do you feel that you get lost? Give me the mic.
I think a lot of the disconnect between listening to you saying it and our understanding is that we aren't able to replicate your experience of doing different things with consciousness. You know, although we can understand theoretically that this is possible and these are the qualities of consciousness from our own experience, but our dexterity in being able to wield our consciousness is not there. So,
like what? Give me an example.
Like focusing consciousness on itself for a long time and experiencing bliss.
Oh.
That's an example.
Okay.
Like,
really? Well, that's the beginning. That's like step one.
yeah, and at least I, like, you know, maybe I can have like small periods of this, but I can't like at will sit down, or maybe in the middle of like, you know, I'm undergoing some serious emotion. I should be able to sit down and just like shut that out and focus on my consciousness.
No. Because by shutting it out, you are turning off your consciousness. You're fragmenting your consciousness.
By shutting it out?
Yes, exactly. That's the misunderstood. You see? The moment you go into denial on any of the objects in which you have your consciousness invested, then you can't anymore get it back. It goes dead. It's like your arm falls asleep.